I want to tell very briefly how I got to know Jim. And actually, I have been communicating with him on Zoom for more than 1.5 years. And eventually, we met in person for the first time this June in DC on the National Convention, which I also co-organized. Why 1.5 years ago, I got to know him, who is someone, yes, great and Asian American state representative in the leadership role in Texas, yes. But I'm here in Pennsylvania. Why? Because about 1.5 years ago, a bill was introduced in Texas. The original language in the bill say that any Chinese people descended in Texas cannot buy land and property. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that alert many people in our own community. And that was a lot of struggle, and Jim Wu is the one, not just as a state representative, but also as community leader to organize, even to educate our community how to come together to fight back for such a crystal clear discriminated legislation. And they won the battle. And from day one, since I also serve as the National Board of Chinese American United, we also tried from the national level to support their effort. So that's how I got to know him, and he was organized online meetings to bring communities together every week or every other week. I personally was thinking about, first, I want to support them, help them. Second is I want to learn from them because I'm so scared. What if something happened similar in Pennsylvania? I need to learn myself, equip myself first. And if it happened here, then I will know how to respond, at least to help more efficiently for our people here.
So my name is Jim Wu. I'm a state rep out of Houston. I've been a state rep for, this is my 12th year now. I'm running for re-election for my 7th term. And as Stephanie said, thank you again, Stephanie, for helping put this together. Last year, I spent a lot of my time, in fact, most of my time, fighting off what we call the alien land law in Texas. And it's called the alien land law because that's what it was originally called 100 years ago when we passed it the first time. And this, again, the law was about not letting Asian immigrants buy land. That means a home, commercial property, even farmland. And later on, they even added mineral interest. So if you owned oil and gas, you couldn't own it anymore, right? So this applied to green card holders who are permanent residents. It's applied to visa holders who are here, even here to do business. This also would have applied to dual citizens. And we tried to say, hey, this is wrong. You cannot say an entire community, every single person in an entire community is a spy, right? And so Texas was the only state in the nation that the people successfully fought off the bill, right? But this bill, this type of legislation has been passed by most states around the nation. And so this year, when I'm going around the country telling people, hey, we got to get back up. We got to get organized again. We've got to get ready to fight again because all these things are coming back. People didn't believe me. I tell people in my community, I know we beat this last time, but it's coming back. And there's no. We defeated it. We beat them. They won't come back. Are you kidding?
Right.
You humiliated them. They're the only state that didn't pass it.
They're gonna come back.
But there's more. The more we look, the more we found. And that's what I really want to share with you today. And what I found scares me. That's it. It scares me as it scares Stephanie, as it scares most people who see what I have shown you what is all together at one time. Okay? And we call this the anti-Asian laws in America because 100 and 150 years ago, when they passed these laws saying no Chinese people here, Chinese people cannot do this, Japanese people cannot do that, you cannot marry this person. That's what they were called. They were called anti-Asian laws because they wanted to get rid of Asians. These are not my words. This is the words of history. This is what's written into laws that were passed. Just a brief overview. For the last 200 years, when there have been what we call Asians in this country, we have passed laws against Asians. And historically, those laws have almost always been passed against the Chinese and the Japanese, because that's all people knew that there were. And most of the times, they just passed them against the Japanese because they didn't know that there's a difference between Chinese and Japanese, right? Or sometimes they just passed them against the Chinese thinking that it would cover the Japanese as well. And then the Japanese says, haha, we didn't get us. And then they change the law to cover them too, right? Okay. So these laws historically have focused on several key areas. One, property ownership. Can you own a home? Can you own a business? Restrictions on employment. Where can you work? Who can you work for? Education. You can't go to school. Period. Even marriage. Even who you're allowed to marry. These anti-Asian laws were in response not to a threat that was out there, but to the public's perception that they don't like Asian people. Okay? The previous laws have all been found to be unconstitutional, and we'll talk about that, how long it took. And people have asked me, why are we worried? These laws have already been found unconstitutional in the past. I said, well, number one, it took the court somewhere between 40 and 100 years to find them unconstitutional. You were willing to wait? And the second thing is, that things being unconstitutional has never stopped them from doing it. Even during the Japanese internment, during the Japanese incarceration, they understood what the 14th Amendment meant. They knew it was probably not constitutional. They did it anyways. All right. So, people, I had to add this slide in recently. People always ask me, but what is driving? What's the push? What's the spark? What lights us off? And I tell people, I think it's population. Because the first Asians in America, in the United States, happened like around the 1750s, like on inland, right? The first people first Asians in this country were actually, I think they say it was Filipinos. But they were very, very small numbers, very, very small populations. No problem. There suddenly was a population explosion around 1850, 100 years later. Sudden waves of Chinese and Japanese started coming to the country. A lot of Chinese, especially for the railroad, for the gold rush, right? There was work to be done, and they needed bodies. Within just 10 years, states began passing no Chinese laws, no Japanese laws around the country, right? Within 10 years. Here is what's happening with our Asian population right now. Since the 1980s, this is all Asian communities, this is just Chinese. But the pattern is the same. About every 10 years, since the 1980s, our population has doubled. Almost on the dot. You can't read this, but 1980s, about 370,000 Chinese, right? 1990s, 600,000. 2000 is 1.2 million. 2010, 1.8 million. 2021, 2.3 million Chinese alone. Okay? Just growing, and the growth rate is actually increasing. Right? The rate of growth is increasing for everyone who's taking calculus. Right? This is, I'm sorry this is so small, but this is condensing about 3 pages of history down to one slide. And we actually had to even exclude most, and still this is only a fraction of the laws passed against Asians in America. Right? We had to remove all the state laws, all the state court decisions, because it was just too much. This is just federal decisions. Every single red thing is something bad, every single green thing is something good, right? we start out with 1776. Before 1776, the British said no immigrants may not buy land. Only people we approve of may buy land. Period. After we became the United States of America, Congress says, no, we're not doing that anymore. We're not doing that anymore. We want everyone to come here. We want everyone to buy land. We want everyone to settle. And so they got rid of that rule. All immigrants can buy land. Right? Until the Chinese and Japanese started coming. Within a little bit of time, 1876, the Anti-Coolie Act is passed, right? Because coolie, the Chinese who are coming to work on the railroads, right? 1875, the United States passes the Page Act. The Page Act says no Chinese women may be admitted into the country. Anybody want to take a guess on why it says no women? No babies. Because at this time, when you look at the rhetoric, look at the way Chinese and Japanese people are described, we're described as rats, as vermin, as a pestilence, as a plague upon the United States. We are the carriers of disease, right? We are the eaters of dogs and cats. No women, 1875. 7 years later, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. The first time in the United States that the United States used immigration as a weapon against a specific group. This law stood legally until 1943. 1882, 1943. And you know why it was technically repealed in 1943? Because the United States needed to sign a treaty with China to fight Japan. And China says, we're not going to sign any treaty with you because you have this racist law against us. And so the United States, not wanting to have an extra enemy, not wanting to have a partner, said, okay, we will repeal the law on paper. We will repeal the law on paper. So they did. They removed the Chinese Exclusion Act from the books, but they carried through the policies for another 20 years. They did not want Asian immigrants so badly that they weren't willing to repeal the law on the books, but use their personal power to keep the policy in place. So even after 1943, the total number of visas granted to China, the Chinese people, was 100 per year. 100 visas per year. I've actually met someone who was a child of the 100. Like, I couldn't believe it because they were so rare. Right? It's hard to meet somebody. Right? In fact, if you want to look in this room, anybody in here came before 1975? One? A few? Anybody before 1970? Oh, before 1960? 65?
Not personally.
Okay, but your family, okay? Right? Everybody else came here, like my family, 1980, 85, 1990. This is why. Because up until 1965, our people were banned from coming into this country, basically, completely. Okay? Everyone in here who has Asian face has a bit of an accent. Because they're recent immigrants. Because of this. I point this out, I remind people that 1965 is not that long ago. There's people in this room born before 1965. The people who made sure that the law, even though it was removed from the book, was still carried out, some of those people are still alive. If they're not alive, their kids are. Okay? at the same time this is happening, we are looking at the Japanese incarceration, the Japanese internment, if you will, right? Right? Internment makes it sound like it was a summer camp. This was a concentration camp. Okay, we didn't gas anybody, but let's not split hairs like that. This was a forced concentration camp. Here's the thing that I want to make sure everyone knows and remembers. During World War II, while we rounded up 120,000 Japanese Americans, at the same time, on the other side of the country, granted that the German and Italian population is hundreds of times larger, we only rounded up 10,000 Germans and Italian nationals, foreign nationals who are not residents, who are not citizens. On the other hand, in opposition, of the 120,000 Japanese Americans taken, 2/3 of those population were American-born citizens. Children, babies, the elderly, even people who didn't speak a word of Japanese, even people who were half Japanese and a quarter Japanese who did not even know that they were Japanese. What is the purpose? What is the reason for taking babies and children and the elderly and people who didn't even know that they were half Japanese? Because they're all threats. Every single person. If they have Asian face, they're a threat. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Now, I want to make sure that we understand, when we say like we're passing state laws, passing stuff, and we're happy to send these slides out, so I know it's kind of small. Happy to send the slides out so everyone can see them up close. I want to make sure that people understand that these were not small little like one or two word laws that was easy to pass and it was no big deal. This is not 1859. This is Oregon's constitutional change to bar Chinese and Japanese. Constitutional change. They changed the structure of their government to make sure that our people could not be there. This is a photo of the infamous Webb-Haney Act. This is the California law that sparked a lot of it. This is the California law that started the explosion of anti-Asian laws throughout states. This is the law banning Chinese people and Japanese people from owning any property in the state. Right? And this always bothers me because I look at these people that are on this photo and I'm trying to figure out what is different about them. What is different about them than any other photo I've ever seen of people from that era? They're wearing the same clothes. They're in a big city. Oh, that's right. They have Asian face. That's the difference. Right? And this Oregon law, Oregon constitutional change, was not removed until 1946. 1859, 1946. California's Webb-Haney Act, not repealed until 1952, overruled by the courts. Okay? 15 states amended their constitution to ban Japanese and Chinese. Right? The United States Congress passed a Naturalization Act even, but it specifically excluded Asians. And back then they didn't know Indians existed really. So, right? I'm sure we would have added you. So it says that everyone can naturalize and become a United States citizen except for Asians. Everyone can be a citizen except Asians. That's why in Japan, that's why in World War II, during the Japanese internment, Japanese incarceration, that's why all of the citizens were natural born, because they couldn't override the 14th Amendment, right? Because they passed a law to make sure that the parents could not be citizens, but they could not stop the kids from being citizens. Hold on, you wait. Okay. Again, we talked about the set of laws, right? Property, education, employment, immigration. Here's education. California passed a law that basically says, well, black kids and white kids have to have separate schools, but we don't have to provide any schools for the Asian kids. They don't get to go to school at all. And it took the courts to stop them. Again, I want to remind you, not repealed until 1947. Not that long ago. Employment. Hey, if you ever wonder why there are so many, you know there's more Chinese restaurants than McDonald's in America? Yeah. You ever wonder why? You ever know why so many Asian people, so many Chinese people own dry cleaners and laundromats?
Self-employed.
Because for 100 years, many states in this country had laws that says Chinese people and Asian, Japanese people were only allowed to do two things: wash clothes and make food. And in fact, the laws specifically said women's work. And don't forget, there's not that many women here, because remember, we passed a law saying no women, right? So they are directing this to the men. That not only do you not have even the rights of black people, we won't even treat you like a man. We intentionally pass a law to say you are only allowed to do women's work as men. Think about that. Right? Here's another, you want another great insult? Often these laws refer to, they didn't say Japanese people, they didn't say Chinese people. They refer to everyone as the Mongolian races. You want to guess why they refer to Asians as the Mongolian races? What does Mongolia have to do with anything? The reason is because at this time, earlier on, the only thing that Europeans really knew about Asia was that Genghis Khan came from Asia and conquered them. And they saw Genghis Khan and the Mongols as the demons, right? The monsters. And what more, they said they knew that Genghis Khan had come all through Asia. And so what they were saying is, you, the people who are the children of the rape of Mongols, you are the bastard children of the Mongols. That's what this is saying. The Mongolian races, why would you call the Chinese and Japanese Mongolian races? Because Genghis Khan, you are really the children of Genghis Khan, because he raped all your women. This is meant to be an insult as well. California, the state of California passed, California passed a law that says Chinese people, Japanese people may not work in the government in any way. The law stood for 50 years. Could not work in government. So, we talked about the courts already. We talked about all these cases being invalidated. Well, most of these laws were passed in the 1800s, early 1900s. This is when they were repealed. Some in the early 1800s, even the courts back then knew that this stuff was unconstitutional. The ones who had ethics and had morals found them to be unconstitutional. They're a clear violation of the Constitution. Other courts have said, we don't see anything. We don't see anything. And they were not repealed until almost 60, 70, even almost 100 years later. And my point is, the courts, I think, will be right in the end, but they're not going to save us in time. Because what I'm really concerned is that we're repeating these same steps in history, passing the same kind of laws, having the same philosophies, the same ideas. What we look at right now, the laws that are being passed right now and being proposed right now, look very, very similar to the laws in the past. But more importantly, they share the same philosophies. They share the same philosophies that all of you are a threat. All of you are a danger. Why did they round up every single Japanese American in the entire United States? Because every single one is a threat. Even the babies, even the elderly, Even people who didn't know they were Japanese. They're a threat. And this is reflected in their passage of their laws. California's Web Painting Act that we talked about was specifically passed because they were concerned that the Japanese were a threat. They were specifically concerned the Japanese are only loyal to the emperor. Everyone knows that. We can't trust them. Just look at them. Look at what they eat. Look at their strange language and their strange cultures. They're not Americans. We can't trust them. Even the ones who are citizens, we can't trust them. And this was reflected in the sentiments when we started rounding up Japanese Americans. General John DeWitt, the general who was in charge of the Japanese concentration camps, specifically said when asked in her interview, and this, by the way, this quote is said multiple times. He said this in multiple places. This is not a one-off. A Jap's a Jap. It makes no difference whether he's an American citizen or not. The problem right now for the Asian community, for the Chinese American community, is you can replace Jap with Chinese and it'll work exactly the same right now. We hear it in social media, we see it on the news, right? Every Asian is a potential spy. Right? So what's the big deal? What's the big deal if they call them threats, if they call them spies? The problem is that, but this is like a type of thing that our country has done since the beginning of our country. We've always found powerless immigrant groups, powerless groups of any kind that say they're the monsters, they're the boogeymen, they cause all our problems. We blamed it on the Irish, right? Irish need not apply. They said, oh, they're dirty, they're lazy, they're criminals, they eat dogs and cats, they're coming here to destroy us. And then it was other groups. In Texas, it became the Polacks and the Germans, right? They were the ones who were targeted, right? And then after that, they said, well, let's find the newly freed slaves are a good target. And then later on, hey, Latinos are great. It's our turn now. It's our turn. Well, again, okay? That's what happened in the past. Every disease that went through San Francisco, it's Chinese. Every problem that happened in Oregon, it's the Japanese. Right? Here's the basic thing. Here's the question that I have to ask you. If I tell you there is a threat, there is a life-threatening issue inside your house, there is something in your house that is a danger to you, to your family, to your children, to everything you care about, do you ignore that threat? Do you negotiate with that threat? Do you compromise with that threat? Do you wait for that threat to become a bigger threat? Do you ignore it completely? What do you think? Would you ignore a life-threatening issue inside your house? No. So the problem is, back then they said we have to deal with the Japanese because they were a threat to our community. They're a threat to our nation. Right? What do you do with threats? You get rid of it. You destroy it. You make sure it never comes back. And what if the threat increases? What was a spark for America? Pearl Harbor, World War II, right? You have spent all this time building up this powder keg. You have built up all this tension, all this hate. You pass all these laws, and the threat is still here. You pass all these laws and say, the threat, get out, get out, get out. And they still are here. What do you do next if they still are here? And here's the thing I have to say. National security is a real issue. It's an important issue. China is a known bad actor. We know this. But here's the thing. If you say, that our concern is with China and their agents and whatever else, whatever of the government, then you focus on that government and their agents. You don't say that every single person that shares that ethnicity is also working for the government. My family was thrown into the fields during the Cultural Revolution, right? My father at age 13 almost died. So did my mom's parents, who were surgeons. They were thrown into the fields. And for a lot of you who don't know what that really means, look it up, right? They were sent to either farm or die with no help at all, and many people died. We're talking about 70 million people died. And for them to say that my family didn't come from China, my family fled China. We got here as fast as we could, as soon as we could, okay? And to say that families like ours, that we're spies for the Chinese government, is beyond offensive. And here's a secondary problem, and we'll talk about this in more a bit. If you actually treat the entire community as the problem, as the threat, you actually do something worse. You actually make us less safe, and we'll talk about that. That once they made us the enemy, made our community enemy, our community stopped cooperating. Our community stopped cooperating with the FBI and stopped calling in, stopped answering phones, stopped doing all sorts of stuff that helps the country be more safe, right? And so we talked about what happened in the past, right? And I'm going to unfortunately have to talk about where this. Some of you have heard about Project 2025, some of you have not. So Project 2025 is I think the grand masterpiece of many years of work by the Heritage Foundation. And this is a plan, a 920-page plan that documents every single change that people want in the federal government and in the government as a whole when they're in power, okay? And what this is a description of all the changes that people want. Everything from the very, very top to the very, very bottom, from nuclear weapons down to textbooks for school kids, right? Every single little thing. And if you want to know if they are concerned about the Asian American community, the Chinese American community, let me put it this way. The Project 2025, and nuclear, national security is a really big issue for the nation, right? Nuclear weapons, all that stuff is really important. The country that has nuclear weapons pointed at us, Russia, our Cold War adversary for 50 years, is mentioned 108 times, right? Cold War adversary. China is mentioned about 800 times. So you can make your own decision about whether or not they're concerned about our community, okay? And there's people saying like, well, Project 25 is just one organization, who cares, they're crazy people, whatever, right? Well, as someone who's worked in politics for over a decade, let me tell you that the Heritage Foundation is America's oldest and most powerful think tank. And usually what they say becomes law pretty shortly. And it's not my word, I mean, they brag about that themselves, okay? And it's not just them. This is actually from their own website. And these are all the groups that worked with the Heritage Foundation, and actually this is not all the groups. All the groups would actually be about to here. I ran out of space. And this is virtually every single conservative group in the entire United States. Every think tank, every policy group, every single, they were a part of this project. So the entire nation's conservative groups and the most powerful conservative group in the entire nation got together and wrote a doctoral thesis on what they will do. And here are some things that Project 25 calls for that directly affects the Asian community, the Chinese community in particular. Number one is the revival of the China Initiative. And for those of you that don't know, and you don't work in academia, or you're not a scientist, the China Initiative was a directive by Trump to the FBI to basically say, drop all your existing investigations and only investigate Chinese Americans. And that's what they did. So for about 2.5 years, the FBI investigated about 3,000 plus Chinese American scientists, doctors, and researchers. That's 3,000 lives ruined. That's 3,000 plus careers destroyed, right? All Chinese Americans. You know how many cases of espionage they found? Anybody want to guess how many cases of espionage they found?
Zero.
That's a hell of a batting average, right? 0. But here's what it did do. During the height of the China Initiative, and I know this because I've talked to the FBI because they're trying to fix this right now. The entire Asian community stopped cooperating with them. Why? Because even people who were helping the FBI got targeted for investigation. So why would you put yourself out there to be the next target? Why would you cooperate? Why would you call in tips? Why would you help? Right? And this is a real problem for the FBI right now because that's how they get information that things are happening. Because only the community knows what's happening in the community. Okay? Discontinuation of all student visas from China. That's how my parents got here. My parents came here to study. My dad became a nurse, not because he wanted to, because that's how you got green cards, right? And, and so many of our people in the community, this is how we set foot in the country first. Education, right? And this is what's been good for our country because we're not just bringing Chinese people here, or Indian people here, or people from Japan, or anywhere else. We're bringing the best and the brightest. The people who are going to college, people who are getting full rides to college, right? Banning completely. Prohibitions on the fields of employment, and this is just some of them. Academia research is a big one. This is why they talk about all about intellectual property. It's all about this. Academia and research. Banning Chinese from academics, banning Chinese professors, banning Chinese researchers. Technology and critical infrastructure. Banning Chinese from all communications. Banning Chinese from computer hardware and computer programming. And even agriculture and food. Like, why? Who cares if they farm? For those of you who are real estate agents, real estate's a big one because the complaint is if Chinese people are allowed to become real estate agents, then they will sell properties to Chinese people. That's not a joke. That's something somebody said. The alien land laws. Alien land laws, as we see in the States, that's in there. This is a big one for the community. Elimination of family-based immigration, chain migration, family reunification. That's how most of us got here. My parents came here with through education. I came here. I'm not U.S. born. I'm Chinese born. I came when I was like 3.5. I came here for family reunification, right? And so did my aunts and uncles. Okay. And so did a lot of your relatives came here after you did, through family reunification, ending it completely. Trump tried to do this when he was president. Here's the problem. I'm not coming to you to say this is a danger that's coming soon. I'm not saying this is a danger that's coming tomorrow, or even a danger that's coming today. This danger has already been here and has already been happening for a few years, right? We've been passing these laws that we just talked about. These things, we've been passing these on the state level already in Texas, okay? So this is Congress. This is the federal. This is how they've responded. 2 weeks ago, we had China Week in the U.S. House, right? And what did China Week pass? Well, the big one was they want to put China Initiative into law. Remember? 3,000 cases, batting average 0. Something, they want to take something that's that effective and put it into law. Right? You have to ask yourself, why would you take a program that produce negative results and make it a permanent program? I can't answer that for you. You have to answer that for yourself.
They treat themselves as whites.
Right.
The leaders.
The House passed a version of the alien land law themselves. Right? All Chinese people are banned from farmland. I don't know why.
When was that passed?
Last week, 2 weeks ago.
How about reinstatement of the Chinese?
Last week, 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago. Not passed. Joe Biden did not sign it. Okay, it did not make it through the Senate. For now. Okay, this was passed out of the House. So some of these on here, they say, oh, some of these are not that bad. You know, some of this don't do that much. And people say, oh, I'm not worried. This doesn't do that much. We don't care about farmland. It's fine. I remind everyone, they did not ban Chinese people first. They banned Chinese women first. You always take smaller steps and then next time come for the rest. This is already happening. Here are some of the problems that we talked about before that are already into law. These are 24 states that have passed some form of alien land law. They passed some form of the alien land law. Now, some states like Virginia, their law does nothing. Their law does basically nothing. It's almost impossible to enforce, but they still passed it. All the states with an asterisk by it, or the star by it, those states specifically bar the entire population. These ones, like Virginia says, you can't buy land, if you're a foreign government, you can't buy land unless we have a treaty with you. The United States has this treaty with everybody, right? Okay, so that doesn't work. So, but, like Texas is on here, and you say, wait, Texas defeated their bill. We did, we defeated this last version, but what we didn't realize is they had already passed a smaller version of it the session before. And that session before says all Chinese immigrants are banned from this. All green card holders, all visa holders, even dual citizens are banned from buying certain types of land. And then in 23, they came back to expand it. Right? It never stops at a little. Here's an example. Property ownership. This is Louisiana. All right, Louisiana's bill basically says the same thing. Just all Chinese immigrants, green card holders, visa holders, cannot buy property anymore. Okay, this is already passed into law. Education. This is Texas. This is my good friend Tony Tinderholt. He's not really my friend. His bill says that if you're an immigrant from China, Iran, North Korea, or Russia, you cannot go to any school in any university in Texas. So, green card holders, visa holders, and I think this bill would actually include dual citizens as well. You may not attend any public or private university. This did not pass yet. But you know who did pass their version? Florida. Florida passed their version. Okay? And Florida's bill is extra sneaky. Because Florida says the state of Florida cannot have an employment relationship with Chinese immigrants. Okay? And you're like, okay, so they can't work for the state? No. You can't work for a state university. Right? So what does that mean? That means no Chinese professors, no Chinese researchers, but it's actually worse than that. Because for every graduate program, every doctoral, you have some kind of TA requirement, lab assistant, proctor. You have to do something, right? You have an internship, you have a residency, something. Those are all employment relationships. So by default, all Chinese immigrants are now banned from Florida graduate postgraduate programs, right? Baccalaureate programs, right? And Florida passed their alien land law too. It's in the appellate courts right now. So here's kind of where my problem is. And notice throughout this entire thing, I did not tell you what I think my conclusions are. You make your own conclusions. That's it. You draw your own conclusions. I just show you what 1 + 1 is. You tell me what it equals. So in 1800s to 1943, we passed property ownership restrictions, education restrictions, employment restrictions, housing restrictions, immigration restrictions, personal relationship restrictions. And then right now, on a state and federal level, we have passed restrictions on property ownership, restrictions on education, restrictions on employment, restrictions on housing, we've passed restrictions on immigration. What does Project 2025 call for? It's the bottom two that worries me. It's the bottom two that worries me. So, this is not Gene Wu's crazy theory, okay? Throughout this, I have given you zero opinion. I have given you nothing that says what my analysis is, right? I just show you what happened in the past. I show you what's happening right now. You get to decide on your own what is the connection, okay? It's not my theory. I'm just telling you history. This is not hyperbole. I'm not blowing anything up. People say, oh, you're exaggerating. I did not exaggerate about any of the stuff that happened in the past. I did not exaggerate anything that's happening right now. All those, you could look it up right now for yourself, and it is word for word the same, okay? And I want to say, people who say like, oh, no, Project 25, it's just a conservative wish list. You want to say a conservative wish list, that's fine. But the problem is, for our community, we've already been passing these laws. We have already passed many of these laws in many of the states. It's not a theory anymore once it starts happening. Okay? And I'm coming to you in Pennsylvania. I'm going to people in Florida, in Tennessee, and even in New York and California. New York and California, people say, oh, we're not worried. That's a red state problem. Well, it's not. Number one, California, again, you were the first state to pass theirs. You know why California is not on that list of 24? Because Gavin Newsom vetoed it. But California would have been on that list had he not. And I say, California, you, again, were the first. You were the spark that ignited this, right? This is going to happen everywhere. And, but by the way, this is a nonpartisan issue. This is Democrats and Republicans passing these laws. I want to be very clear about that. This is not a partisan issue. Fear and hate works as well, just as well on both sides. These are all signs in the past. I know we had an argument about this last night, like no dogs and no Chinese. This sign has actually been around for probably 100, 150 years. But this is a pretty recent picture. This is like a black and white photo from from the 60s or 70s. Right? And we had this argument like, oh no, is this from the 1800s? Like, no, I don't think non-Asian people in the 1800s knew how to write Chinese. Okay, right. But these are things that were pretty common. Look, we still have sundown towns in Texas. I don't know about Pennsylvania. But we have sundown towns in Texas. There's towns, like I had when I was a prosecutor, I had a police investigator, a police captain with the Houston Police Department who worked with us, and he had helped me get stuff in Louisiana, and we talked about this, like, dude, I do not stop in Orange, Texas. This is a black cop, like, who's been a cop for a long ass time, and he says, I do not stop in Orange, Texas, right? That was 10 years ago, okay? Here's the problem. A lot of these communities, you can't say these things anymore because the communities fought back. Because they made it so that there's political and societal pressure that you cannot say these kind of things. You can't go out and make fried chicken jokes about black people. You can't make taco jokes about Latinos. You can make fried rice jokes. You can make egg roll jokes, no problem, right? People make curry jokes. They just did. And people are like, whatever, okay? These signs are coming back now, but they're not being put up by businesses. They're being put up by the government. And so, I don't know if you guys can see the pictures. You guys know what these pictures are, right? I don't have to explain this. These are photos from Japanese incarceration. And while I was putting this together, this destroyed me. Like, I'm really trying really hard not to cry talking about this, okay? But these boys look exactly like my sons. They look exactly like my sons. And here's basically my question. And throughout this, I've not given you any opinion, right? And I asked you to make up your own decision, make up your own minds about what 1 + 1 is. And so here's my question. Let's say you say Gene is wrong. Gene's a crazy guy, he's wrong. What percentage of me being right are you ready to risk? If there's a 10% chance that, if you say I'm wrong, but there's a 10% chance that I am right. There's a 10% chance that if there was a spark, if something happens, if there's an incident in the Sea of China, lives are lost, shots are fired, and the situation gets worse, how much are you willing to bet? What are you willing to bet that we don't have soldiers coming to our houses with guns? 10%? Are you willing to bet 10%? Or are you saying like we should do something about it? What if it's lower? What if it's 1%? What do you say? There's only a 1% chance. 1% Gene Wu is right. That there's a 1% chance that in the next 10 to 20 years, something might happen to cause a spark, and then your families will be forced onto trucks at the end of a rifle and told to go to camps. Are you ready and willing to do something if there's a 1% chance I'm right?
No.
Okay? What if it's a less than 1%? What if it's a 0.1% chance? If there's a 0.1% chance that your children will have to take their families to a concentration camp, if there's a 1% chance, are you willing to do something today? Something right now? Okay? You don't have to answer out loud. You know you can answer for yourself. And so this is, you can, throughout this entire thing, I have not given you my opinion at all. I've not told you what I think. I just tell you what 1 + 1 is. And you tell me what the answer is. So, this is what I'm asking people to do if you agree with me. If you think I'm right. Or there's a less than 1% chance that I'm right. 1, educate your community. Go to your text group, go to your friend group, go to your email group, your Instagram group, your WeChat group, your whatever, your Signal group. Tell your friends and family it's coming. It's coming. It's not coming tomorrow, it's already here. But more is coming. If we don't fight back now, we may never have the chance to fight back. 2, organize your community. If you're not a part of an Asian community group or a civil rights group or some kind around here, join one. Join it. Get organized now. Get together. Find your friends. Get together. If there's no group around here that you say represents Asian American interest, Chinese American interest, congratulations, you just formed it. Okay? And I have to say this to people all the time. I said this many times last night. If you're the only person in the room asking the question, who's going to lead this? Congratulations, you have answered your own question. Okay? And here's what I want us to be able to do. I want us to be able to do the same thing that we did in Texas in fighting off SB147. I want us to be able to do this everywhere around the country, whether you're in a red state or a blue state or a purple state or a green state. Okay? I want us as a community to be able to go to our elected officials, go to our leaders and say, we are here, we are Americans, we love this country, but we want to be loved too. We want to be here, we want to exist and have the same rights as everyone else. We don't want people to look at us like we're potential spies.
But no matter what we vote, who we vote, I think the result will be the same.
Well, and so look, you can say that. You have an absolute right to say like nothing will ever change, right? But we had the same people say the same thing when we were fighting SB147 in Texas. They say the Chinese community, the Asian community, they don't vote, they're not organized, and you know, they're just good little Asians. When you insult them and you beat them, they just go back to work, and they say, yes sir, right? And they just go back to work, they just work hard, and they make money, and we don't need to worry about them. Do you know what we did in Texas? We organized the entire Asian community, as many people as possible. We told people who have never even voted, never looked at American politics for 1 second in their entire life. And we told them, either you fight or you lay down. You fight or you lay down. But if you want to lay down, go outside. I don't want to see you. Okay? And so most people said, okay, I'm ready to fight. And you know what fighting looks like? Fighting looks like us organizing the community into our areas. Every community had its own state rep, had its own senator. We sent people to call, text, email, send letters. We've had people write actual physical letters and send them in by hand, right? Because handwritten letters get read. Handwritten letters get read. I promise you, right? And we sent people to go meet with them at the Capitol. We sent people to go meet with them at their district office. We sent people to meet with them at community events. And over and over and over, we send people to remind them one thing. There is a cost. There is a political cost if you mess with us, right? Because all politics is this. All politics, you weigh cost and reward. The people who are passing the law say, well, there's a reward that our voters and the people who give us money will like what we're doing. And there's no cost because Chinese people don't vote. Who cares? They don't ever respond. They don't protest. They don't get angry. But guess what? We did call. We did vote. And then we had angry press conferences. And then we had angry protests. And then we had angry marches. And then we started calling people and saying, I will never vote for you again if you pass this, right? If one person calls, that's a little concerning, right? Yeah, crazy person, don't worry. 3 people call, like, oh, that's unusual. 10 people call, this might be a problem. 20 people call, oh crap, better call the boss, right? I'll tell you my favorite example of what happened. During SB 147, there were other bills that did the same terrible things, but not SB 147, right? And one of the senators that carried one of the other bills, so one of the bills that's not quite as bad as 147, but still pretty bad. We had the hearing for this bill, and 2 days later, his office calls and says, please come to the senator's office. I said, uh-oh, being called to the principal's office. And so I go, I said, I don't know what's going on, he's gonna punch me, what, you know? And he just stands up, shakes my hand, says, Gene, I promise you, I will not move my bill, my bill is dead, and I will vote no on the other bills. Whoa. This is a 180, this is a complete 180 flip in 2 days. Right, just 2 days ago, he was laying out this bill. What happened? I don't know exactly what happened, but that kind of response, in my world, only happens when a donor calls. When a big donor, somebody who writes big checks, calls and says, if you do this, you will never get another dime from me, right? That kind of political flip happens with money, right? But the thing is, that's probably like either a Chinese donor, a Chinese American a supporter who's a donor, or somebody who works with them, or somebody who has money interest tied with them, right? But that donor would not have learned about it and learned what to do if we did not educate the community, organize the community, and then take action, right? That one single person's call was an example of all this, but done one time. What if we can do this hundreds of times, thousands of times? For too long, the Asian community in this country has been invisible. I heard that word earlier a little bit. Invisible, as in people are happy to have you as their doctor, happy to let you design their house, happy to let you program their computer. But what happens when we need something? What happens when we say we need your help? We need you to stand up with us. We need you to understand that if it is unfair to call all black people criminals, if it's unfair to say all Latinos are illegal, if it's unfair to say all Muslims are terrorists, then it's also unfair to say all Asian people, all Chinese people are spies. It's just as wrong. And really that's the message. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking you to treat it like everyone else. If you say it's not okay to label an entire community over here as one thing, then it's not okay to do it over here. And I'm going to have to use an example. And let me say this. I'm going to be talking to the Indian American community really soon too. It's coming for them next. You know why? Population growth. The Indian population in America is growing faster than the Chinese. Much faster.
How about Mexicans?
Yeah, Mexicans have not Mexicans, Latinos, because it's not just Mexican. In my community, it's mostly South Americans, okay? So Latinos, their growth, they have the largest immigrant population, but their growth is actually decreasing because most of the Latinos who are here are already here, and most of the pressures that are coming that in the past pushed Mexicans into America, those economic pressures are long gone. In fact, during 2008, there's the economic downturn. During other times, Mexicans left and did not come back because the opportunities in Mexico are better, right? And they're also not treated like crap. So, again, Asian Americans are doubling the population every 10 years. And that rate is increasing. So, again, if you remember from the very beginning, when does hate happen? It happens when there's a lot of people, right? Again, you know, when, yeah, that's it. So, I mean, I want to make sure we answer this question.
Right, I do have a question, so I want to know, like, how many states should actually open into that project 2025? And which parties that, you know, which political parties that they belong to?
All right, I'll tackle the last one first because
Has everyone here clear about that
Right.
question?
the question is what party is doing this, and I said it from the beginning. This is bipartisan, right? So
So, yeah, which states?
hold on, one second.
The United States has like 50 states.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which states got involved into that project?
So here's the easy answer of the China Initiative. The vote on this was every single Republican and 23 Democrats. Okay, 23 Democrats voted along with all the Republicans to vote for the China Initiative, and then all the remaining Democrats voted against it.
How many Republicans?
200 and right now, like 215 or something like that. I can't remember exactly. It's whatever 435 divided by 2 is. You guys work it out. Okay. Look, this is a nonpartisan event. but you asking me a political question. I have no way to answer this without it being at least a little political. I have spoken with Vice President Harris personally, and I have talked to her about all this stuff and what's happening in the States. And she has said that she knows about it, she is concerned about it, and she cannot promise a specific resolution. What I have talked to with congressional Democrats and the Biden White House is that at some point they pass a bill in the federal government to override all the state laws, all the state bans, and saying there is only a single policy. I mean, we cannot have 50 states having 50 different immigration policies. Okay? There's a reason why the Constitution exists, and there's a reason why immigration and naturalization isn't specifically a federal issue, because you have to have one policy. Make a U.S. policy, right? Right now, the way that foreign purchases are looked at is through CFIUS. CFIUS is the Committee on Foreign Investments, and I don't know the rest of it. Okay, I've met with people on CFIUS. The CFIUS is I'm not sure it's black level, but it's a top secret level committee, meaning that unless you have top secret level clearance, you cannot sit in it. So all the states who complain about CFIUS, if you hear people complain about CFIUS, they don't know what they're talking about, because none of them have ever sat in one. Because I promise you, nobody in your state has top level security clearance. Okay, top secret level security clearance. So what CFIUS does is it looks at, it evaluates any purchase by a foreign entity or a foreign government over $1 million. Okay, that's a lot. I mean, 1 million is not hard to get. You know, I mean the houses around my neighborhood are well over 1 million. Right?
Jane, this is the voting time, and the question the lady asked before about which party voting for what. So according to what you say, it looked like 100% of Republicans voting for this immigration thing, and maybe 10% of the Democrats is supporting this thing. That's right.
So in all these states that passed some version of it, it's almost exclusively Republicans carrying the bills. So I mean, I was not going to mention that just because this is a nonpartisan event, but that's the reality. That's not my opinion. That's just the fact. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you talk a lot about history in the past.
Yep.
And current and what will be happening in the future. And then we talk about 20 states that have anti-Asian laws. Can you share specifically some laws that they pass? They're targeted on the non-green card holders, or those people who are coming to China, who are coming from China to U.S.
Yep.
And they have a legal visa. Are those people are targeted exclusively?
Okay. Yes. So the way that it is worded, the way that many of these laws worded, the way the text is worded, there says if you are a citizen of China, right? Which is very politically smart. That's a good thing. Though. Whoa, we don't care about citizenship. But people don't realize, if you're an immigrant, even if you're a green card holder, if you're a permanent resident, a green card holder is called a permanent resident, meaning that this is your home until you say it's not, right? Even permanent residents are citizens until the day they become citizens, right? And in fact, those of you in here who are Chinese and you're an American citizen, when you took the citizenship, you're one of the only countries you have to actually take 2 oaths. You have to take 1 oath to become a U.S. citizen and swear a second oath to drop your Chinese citizenship. One of the only countries that have to do that. Okay? Now, and what that means is, the way they word it says, the citizens of China may not attend public university. That includes permanent residents and visa holders, even ones who have visas to come study. They don't care.
So, Jean, how will this thing have an impact on Chinese that's not coming from China?
They don't care. I mean, so look, some of the biggest advocates in the nation in pushing back against this stuff are actually Taiwanese Americans who are not affected by this law. But can you see why they would care that the entire Chinese community is getting banned? You think people know the difference between Chinese and Taiwanese? You think people in the past knew the difference between Chinese and Japanese? Have you ever heard of Vincent Chen?
Yeah, I think the Taiwanese Chinese the phrase was kind of new.
Yeah.
It's recent phenomenon. It's not. It has to do with the Taiwan Strait.
Right, but this is law right now. The people who are writing these laws, they know the difference. They don't care really. Okay?
I just have one small comment and a little question.
Okay.
I came in 1990s as a doctoral student.
Mm-hmm.
In that time, everybody was pretty relaxed.
Yep.
And saying nobody labeled anybody as a spy.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's coming in
Yeah.
as a J1, F1 student, right?
Yep.
Most of you actually, you guys did the same thing. A lot of immigrant. I mean, by the way, immigrant came into the States in
Uh-huh.
3 different ways.
Yep.
As everybody knows. But I don't understand after 30-some years,
Yeah.
and then suddenly we're the spy.
So here-
you know what spy, what
because-
happens to the spy?
Because you came in right
In
here.
the wartime, they shoot you on the spot.
You came in right here.
Is it?
You
Spy.
came in 1980.
Espionage.
We're right here.
Right.
Rats. The population of rats have exploded.
Right. So that was my comment. I mean, I was always wondering, what was the origin of this term Chinese American? What was the origin of this term Asian American? I found out Chinese American came from the 1890 a newspaper done by somebody, a publisher. He had a paper, right? Asian American came from 1968 from UCLA, a Japanese and Chinese couple. They made an anti-war organization, which is called Asian American. And immediately, FBI focused on that. Because in my mind, Chinese American equals American of China. Asian American equals American of Asia. And you put yourself in, you basically expose yourself, you know? Why would I call myself American of China?
Because
AKA Chinese
wait,
American.
but the answer.
I'm an American, I reside in America, I am an American. The American name came
Yeah.
before 1776, when there was British colony. Those people are called American. Anybody, American is not a legal definition, by the way. Legal definition of American is called a US person, citizen, resident, entity. So I think American is a cultural phenomenon. I call myself American. I would never call myself Chinese American. I'm sorry about that. Because
Yeah.
that makes me American of China.
Because
Chinese is an adjective.
because
It's
Americans
a
don't call
characteristic.
themselves American.
No, I don't think we
Right.
should call ourselves that way. To
But-
be in America, to deal with the majority of Americans.
I'm probably the only person in this room who was in an American concentration camp. I was in Poston, Arizona from age 3 to 7. And watched my parents be suffering from the incarceration. As a little kid, of course, I didn't know what was happening. But what I find this disturbing, I guess, is your summary of the situation that we are still in. And I was hoping, when I came, out of interest on the topic, to encounter more optimism. And I don't see that today. I consider myself I'm basically a third-generation American.
Yeah.
Okay? And I never thought about it after the war, growing up in California. But coming to a meeting like this every once in a while, I'm really having to re-ground myself with the realities that you presented in enormous detail. And I'm hoping that things will get better, but now I have to get involved again.
That's a good thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
as I mentioned, it's crazy, literally 4 days to put this together. I sent an email to Harold last night, 2 a.m. He is here, as he said that we should be involved. And he brought his life experience in the camp, and we don't want to have him.
And here's the optimism. It doesn't.
We're here.
It doesn't have to be the same way. We have seen this movie. We know how this movie ends, and we can choose a different ending this time, right?
Yeah.
The difference this time is we can vote.
Yeah.
The difference this time is we have friends. The first communities, the moment this happened in Texas, I made phone calls. The Jewish community, the Black community, the Latino community, the Muslim community, the Japanese community instantly stood up for us. Many of them I didn't even have to call. They said, hey, we heard about this, we're coming, right? When we had our big press conference that made it to the front page of the New York Times, it was with a Black mayor, it's with Latino county judges, it's with an Asian state representative, right? There is a difference this time. We have friends, we know better, and this time we have the ability to act. And I want to say this one thing. I want to remind the Chinese, I know sometimes minority community relationships are not the best, right? Chinese and Black communities, not the best relationship. Just trust me on that. Those of you who don't know, just trust me on that, okay?
But that can change.
Yeah,
That can change. But you know what? And this is what I want to tell, especially all the Chinese people, especially recent immigrants, who have some misgivings about the Black community. Across the nation, when these states were fighting these laws, when there was no Asian state rep, no Asian senators stood up. You know who stood up for us? Black people. Black state legislators stood up for us without even being asked. Why? Because they knew that they were next, or somebody else was next, but this has been done to them before. And they knew, and they stood up because it was the right thing to do. Right? But here is the problem. We're asking everyone to get ready to fight. We're asking everyone to get ready to go to your state legislatures, go to your congressman, go to your senator, and demand your rights, and demand they do something for you after you voted for them and helped them and supported all these years. You ask them for something. The problem is when we go ready to march to the Capitol, if the Black people come, the Latinos come, the Muslims, the Jews, everyone comes, but there is not the Chinese community standing at the front with a flag, they will all turn around and go home. Because if we are not ready to defend ourselves, why would the people coming to help us stay? This is not their fight, but they're willing to join.
Yes,
Question. Yeah.
Yeah.
In this state, we don't have this law yet, right?
We do.
We do?
We have 100 acres against China.
Let's find out. Oh, sorry. Where is Pennsylvania?
Not on there.
What?
But it's been proposed.
Not on there yet.
That's right.
It's been proposed
So,
by the Republican caucus right now.
What should we do? Do we write to our elected official, and what do we tell them?
So,
do you have a
one-
skeleton, a sample
Yeah.
letter?
So this is why I'm doing this. This is the whole reason I'm doing this. I want everyone to know what's going on, and for you to tell everyone else what's going on. Get them to be concerned. Get them ready to do something. Then get them to do something. Get organized. Even if it's small, as much as just you and your 5 friends on a WeChat group or on text message or whatever it is. That's an organization. Once you guys have some kind of organization, we will help you get ready to take action. And that means we'll help you to arrange, do you have an Asian American Day at the Capitol?
There you go.
Do you have a day where all the community, we go to the Capitol and we talk to all the legislators? and we say we're here, who's with us? Who's going to come and speak at our rally, right? Who's going to come to our side? And we tell you, and then you go to, and then outside of that, you take time that you say, you're in this district, you're in district, you write to your representative, you write to your representative, you set up a time to go meet with them, you set up a time to go meet with them, and you say to them, you start, by the way, when you communicate, this is why we want people to vote, when you communicate with an elected official, your first line of every communication, absolutely 100 has to be, my name is, I am a registered voter in your district. I promise you, you will get a response.
The deadline to register become a voter in Pennsylvania this time is October 21st. Coming soon. Make sure to become a voter.
Right.
Then you have the power. Then they will listen to you.
I mean, I promise you, any letter that hits my inbox, or email, or text message that starts out with, I'm a registered voter in your district, they will get a response. Right? Okay. So, wait. So, again, these are not hard things to do. The hardest part is actually 1 and 2. The hardest parts are 1 and 2. This is easy. This is, let's go pick a date to go to the Capitol. Let's pick a date to go march at City Hall. Let's pick a date to go and write emails and send letters. That's easy. Educating the community. After I leave, somebody here needs to teach this. Somebody here that has heard this needs to go and teach. We will send you all the PowerPoints. I'll send you all my op-ed, everything. But you go take it into your community. Hey, put on this presentation. Look at this.
Can children under 18 years old do something right
Yes.
to their representative?
Yes. And even if you're not a citizen, if you can't vote, you're a green card holder. You can donate money, but you can still write. You can say, I'm a constituent in your district. I may become a citizen in the future, right? Whatever it is, even if you're not saying, even if you're a green card holder, if you're a visa holder, you can still participate. You can still make calls. You can still round up your own people and say, we are a group of 50 Chinese American researchers. We are green card holders. We provide really important work to your community. We are all cancer researchers. Why would you get rid of us? We're trying to protect your people and save your people, right? Those kind of messages, if they're done again and again and again, that's how you change it. Ask the 2 elected officials in here, right? They respond to their voters. They listen to their people, and if enough people say, you're wrong, we want you to do something different, they might just say, okay, I think you're right, right?
I think that at this stage of the Chinese community, at least from the Northeast Philadelphia that I encounter, and also from people that's from my family, the volunteer for my organization, it's very surprisingly, nobody know about it. Nobody
Yes.
know about it. Even
That's
I.
why number one is education, right?
Yes.